This podcast is rated IS for incredibly silly and definitely contains bad words, bad jokes, and other bad content that should not be heard by anyone, least of all children. Or maybe it should be. We don't know. We're still not their parents. You're listening to the Starforge podcast with Scya and Mal, two nerdy humans who still have a lot to say about Star Wars: The Old Republic and all its features. Rest assured, the podcast is, as always, working as intended. This is episode 32, A History of Xpacs, Part 3, Knights of the Fallen Empire. Hello, SWTOR players. I am Mal.
And I'm Scya.
And we are back again with the third installment of our History of Xpacs. We are back again with the third installment of our History in Xpacs in SWTOR study with Knights of the Fallen Empire, or as we call it in the biz, KOTFE.
KOTFE.
All right, so for this one, early access was granted October 19th, 2015, and general admission started October 27, 2015. Oh, I forgot. We've got to go back in time. Disappointing other people while flying solo. If you have not played KOTFE and you do not want to hear spoilers, you should turn this off now.
Because this is probably one of the most spoiler-heavy expansions in the entire game. So Knights of the Fallen Empire had an incredible amount of story in its expansion, and it was very immediately obvious that it was a huge change in the pace of the story. We had the basic class stories, which were very focused on your character. We had the Rise of the Hutt Cartel that was focused on galaxy-wide events. We had Shadow of Revan focused on Revan, but very specifically how Revan was affecting the galaxy. And we got what a lot of players like to call in Knights of the Fallen Empire, keeping up with the Valkorians story. This brand new story about a brand new family and set of characters in a brand new culture that we'd never encountered in any other Star Wars. And this was a huge hit or miss for players. Mal, was this something that you liked? Did you like keeping up with the Valkorians, or did you miss really being your own character in the galaxy?
This Xpac was a huge departure from the past two Xpacs. I'm not really sure why. I think it might be that a lot of people, the content had kind of dried up. It had been a long time. There wasn't really any news coming out of the pipeline. A lot of people were playing the game. They were free to play. A lot of people who had subbed to the game were unsubbing, playing other things. They clearly wanted free-to-play people to start subbing, though.
Those story people. Yeah.
Yes, and older players to come back or remain subscribers. Because what was the price of KOTFE?
So we've been enjoying talking about these expansions over the past couple podcasts, and we talked about how Rise of the Hutt Cartel was $20 plus the cost of your subscription. Next one was $20 plus the cost of your subscription. And then Knights of the Fallen Empire was a huge change in what expansions cost. So Knights of the Fallen Empire was actually free with the price of subscription. There was no way to go purchase it. You didn't need to go buy it. And part of this is going to be influenced by the many other games that were coming out that were free or transitioning to free to play. And it was also probably influenced a lot by what Mal said. All of these players who were currently playing for free and needed to kind of be lured into potentially subscribing. The idea of buying a $20 expansion every couple of years and potentially doing it for multiple games was just dead in the water. This is probably not something that was ever going to happen again. And we really saw that transition start in Knights of the Fallen Empire.
Right. So I guess, they want free-to-play people to start subbing. They want older players to stay. And if they're already subscribing, it's almost like you're getting something shiny and new for free.
For free.
Yeah.
I love that this specific model of paying has been maintained. It's a slightly difficult to explain. Like you can subscribe to unlock anything that's currently out, and then you don't have to subscribe again. You do have to explain it to people how it works, but once they find out, they are really excited because there's so many other games where you have all these 15 different things you have to pay for or not buy or buy. And SWTOR's just like, drop your $15 And then unless you're playing hardcore, you don't even have to stay subscribed. You're fine. You don't have to have these commitment issues with a video game, which I love. I am so mad about the fact about how many different subscription services there are right now, and especially because it's hard to like drop in and drop out a lot of them. SWTOR is very easy to take advantage of when it comes to subscribing compared to other games and compared to specifically other entertainment models.
Right. So, speaking of making money.
And other entertainment models. Something else that was also a big change was that the story was delivered in the form of chapters, self-enclosed chapters rather than this long-running expansion story. This was really great on one hand, as the chapters were replayable, unlike any other story content in the game. The downside was that not all the chapters were released yet. BioWare was trying out the kind of TV syndication style of delivering story where a new chapter was released over time, but only the first 9 were available at the expansion's launch. This is apparently something that was received so badly, they're pretty much never going to do it again. But what did you feel about the fact that the story was only half released at the expansion's launch?
I mean, all we really got was this story, and it was disappointing. I'm not a big fan of KOTFE. As we said in the beginning, spoilers, they basically blew up your whole life, and everything you knew was now gone. All your companions that you had gotten to max affection, they're gone now, and now you're in this new universe with new people that you've just met and you don't care about at all. Some of them are okay people. Some of them, who are you? Please leave. And the story to me was just very slow from chapter to chapter. Not much there. Some of it is so stupid. God, I always think about that quest where you have to go out with Lana to collect the whatevers from the swamp. And then you got to go all the way back to the ship. And now Koth needs water from the same area. So me, Barsenthor, Jedi Master, cannot pick up thingies off the ground and carry a bucket of goddamn fucking water. God, it's just obnoxious. And the planet is just dreary and sad.
And so many Sky Troopers. This is actually something, as we talked about, the first few chapters came out. They kind of improved, I feel like, on the pacing later on and stuff like that. But I do agree that the first couple of chapters were fairly rough. But as for the characters that Mal maybe didn't connect with, other players, this became like their favorite expansion. They loved the Valkorian family and the intricacies that it provided, and the additions to Star Wars lore that it provided with the Zakul lore and its royal family. So what else did this expansion bring for us? This brought an upgrade in the level cap from 60 to 65, the new planet of Zakul, planetary level sync, which was very interesting, and we're still kind of dealing with the ramifications down the line now. It brought star fortresses, which are kind of like a flashpoint.
Not really. What is dimmer than flash? Can we call it a glimmer point or a flicker point? That sounds dirty. Okay, go on.
As Mal mentioned, our companions that were near and dear to us and our flicker points since launch were gone. New companions were in, and we also got a new wait. No, we did not get a new operation.
So we're going to talk about that elephant in the room right off the fucking bat. This Xpac was story focused, and there was no new operation. And
story only. That was it.
No new operation. No NIM version, no nightmare version of TOS or Ravagers. And not only did they not make a new op or add nightmare modes to TOS and Ravagers, they removed Nightmare KP and EV. Yes, SWTOR players, there was an even more nightmarish version of KP and EV that used to be in the game, more ghastly than even the pugs I have been in for those. Scya, how'd this make you feel?
It cracks me up when people say things like, oh, Swtorista, you only ever like the game. You only ever speak good about it. And I'm like, excuse me? I freaking voted with my wallet. I was so mad. At this point, I was at the point in my SWTOR game and community where I was playing a lot, really a lot. And I was deep in the raiding aspects. I was doing nightmare mode raiding multiple times a week. I was really, really involved with playing with my friends. And I was so upset about the fact that it felt like they really were not going to be developing any more Operation content that I wanted to vote with my dollar. And I actually went preferred for 6 months. I kept playing because I was still really enjoying playing with my friends, but I stopped giving them even 1 cent of my money.
Yeah.
And I apparently wasn't the only one here. I resubscribed as soon as they announced the next operation was coming out because I wanted to say, like, look, here's my money. Take it. I'll finally play all of those chapters that came out that I wasn't even playing because I didn't want to give you money.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want in my MMO with multiple people.
It was really disappointing, and the chapters were not so great. That
Right, they didn't make
Yeah.
up for it. They didn't make up for the lack.
No.
So there was something that we mentioned earlier that was a very interesting addition to the game, and it may not have been well received, but I think it was necessary to add, especially for down the line, and that was level sync. How did that work, Mal?
Level sync. So prior to this, if you were max level and you went to Korriban, you could just mow down anything with a little sithy wink and a shake of your hips and a wave of your wand, whatever.
A flick of your point.
I did this to us. Yes, I did. But Heroics didn't really give you anything, and you mostly just did it to grab up old achievements really fast, or you could help a lobby friend, not be in a group with them, but like mow down, mobs they tagged, right, to sort of power level. So with level sync, now what happens when I go to Korriban at max level?
Right. So in Star Wars, in Star Wars in general, not necessarily just our game, we have this power fantasy that many people experience. They're like, I want to be Darth Vader. I want to mow everybody down with the slice of my saber and be super powerful. Because in real life sucks and I can't do a lot at all. I can't hit people with a pool noodle even because I will get put in jail. The power fantasy really existed at that time to be able to go to Korriban as a level 50, 60, 65, whatever character, and you could just kill everything, like Mal said, with a wink and a nod. But that wasn't very good gameplay. It didn't actually make a lot of sense, especially if you were a high-level character who was going to go play with a friend. You would just kill everything before they could even take a look at that enemy. So what they wanted to do, also to alleviate the fact that if you wanted to go back and play story, they couldn't reward you with anything. The XP or credits that you would get would be for that original level. Like you wanted to go play some level 20 content on Terrace that you missed out on, you're level 50. You're going to get nothing from it at all. No rewards, nothing, no use in going to help a friend at all or go back to content. And so they changed it to have level sync. It's not perfect, but they basically scaled down your stats and your level and your gear temporarily to vaguely meet the level of that planet. You'll still be more powerful at any given time, even way back then, because you'll have all the abilities, not to mention, hopefully, the knowledge of how to use them. Level sync did stay that way for a very long time. It's kind of been constantly adjusted even to this day, and players still kind of miss that power fantasy, I think, though this is probably better for the game.
So I think another wrinkle that happened at this time with level sync was that the operations in the game were all released and balanced for the max level of the game. But this time, I think we were all level 65 and the operation bosses had their levels raised to 65, but I don't think they did the balancing part very well. I think it was with this patch. What happened with operations?
Right. There is a period of time where the balancing of operations was very, very strange. Like they were easier than they really should have been. And it's kind of fun. We like to talk about it as longtime players, like, oh, I got my achievement back in XYZ time when it was harder. Like, I'm so proud right now I got my achievement for Nightmare Mode Council during the last expansion because it was much harder than it was during this older time period that we're talking about right now. They also, during this time, introduced the concept of a highlighted operation or Ops of the Week, as we called it. There's a little hollow thing. Oh yeah, you can still see the hollow thing. It's on the Gab Derek. Well, I'm looking at the notes that Mal was so kind to write for me. She wrote that it's on the Gav/whatever imp side. The Xia Shadow or the Gab Daragon ship. And it showed the last boss of the operation, and that was a featured one for the week. We've kind of actually returned to that concept of having an operation of the week, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
Full circle.
I forget if it gave you NIM gear in hard mode or if it just gave you more gear. I don't know, but every week there was one featured. And if you go to those ships, the Gav or the Ziost, if you ever see, like the
Floating
Dread
Dread
Council,
Masters,
the
yeah.
Dread Council just like hanging out there, hologram style. That was the terminal we used to check to see what the op of the week was, and then that's what we kind of went and did. R4 is going to adopt this method. There was a loot table of every op in the game and what piece of gear dropped off of what boss. So we kind of like,
Right.
yeah.
Operations were almost more cooperative during that time. They catered to the idea that you'd probably run an operation with a set group or more specifically a guild, and you would work together to gear up. After a while, this concept kind of got thrown out the window. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe to allow more players to raid with less needing of a set group. But what were you taking advantage of during that time?
I liked it. We killed Brontes and Nightmare before ops got easy. We did it one time, and then we were like, well, let's just wait. And then we waited, and the patch dropped, and we're like, well, now this is easy. Let's just go steamrolling through, get everything we need. Like some of the achievements, especially for 16, man, so fucking scuffed. Like Nightmare 16 mode. And I confirmed this because I went back to try to find old videos, and I saw a Volk video back from this Xpac, and somebody in the comments said, the ops are ridiculous. We took people who had no ops experience into Nightmare ops, into EC Nightmare. We barely did the mechanics, and we didn't wipe. We just kept on trucking through like la-di-da. It's ridiculous.
Nightmare's supposed to be hard. It needs to be balanced, but it needs to be hard.
Right. It should be balanced, but it was ridiculous. But they also changed something else here in a very, very big way that we have talked about on a very early episode involving our stats.
Oh man, I forgot this happened. In my mind, this happened like at close to the launch of the game, but it didn't. It happened later down the line. So our stats used to be called willpower, cunning, aim, and strength. And this was a fairly confusing concept for many new gamers or gamers who are not used to looking at stats. They were just used to hitting things with the lightsaber, It was confusing because who needs aim? Well, obviously, a Jedi would need aim so they can actually hit things with their lightsaber, right? My Jedi also needs cunning. They need to be smart. And my trooper needs willpower because that they need to like power through things, right? It wasn't necessarily super clear what did those mean. So they combined those stats into just one called mastery for all the classes. And they also, I forgot about this. They also got rid of a tertiary stat called surge.
Yeah.
What was surge? This was before I was even looking into stats.
It was like tied to crit. You would have an enhancement with crit and surge.
Oh, yeah, crit and surge. I remember hearing that a lot back then.
Crit
you need crit and surge.
Surge was like to if you're a crit. But no, they got rid of surge. I can't say that I miss it too much. It was a lot to manage, especially on a healer. You got to manage your alacrity, your crit, and your surge.
I'm still overwhelmed with the amount we have left now in 7.0, even with them pared down.
I don't mind this. Boy, when you had those 4 stats, you could really pick out who knew what they were doing and who didn't.
Right. Who's wearing the right stats for their class, at least.
Right. Look at this gunslinger wearing willpower. Oh, my God.
I remember that. And it was such a glorious thing to be able to laugh at other people because
it's confusing.
It's such an obvious mistake. Like, it's not something you would guess.
I agree with them getting rid of this. It's just simpler for everybody, and it really paved the way for sharing gear.
Sharing gear and sharing datacrons. Datacrons became legacy-wide, and all of those strange stat-specific datacrons became mastery or some other stat.
Thank goodness. Who wants to get those? I know we've talked about this in a very early episode. Oh God, I'm on my gunslinger. Got to go get all the datacrons that pertain to that. Was it cunning? Cunning, I think, gunslingers. I'm on my sage. I got to gather up all the willpower ones. Ugh.
Now we're going to talk a little more about the story. We touched on how it was delivered before in the form of chapters and how it was about the Zakul family, but that wasn't the only key points for this story in Knights of the Fallen Empire. So first off, once again, spoilers. In the story, you find yourself frozen for 5 years. And when you wake up, Lana Beniko is there, but your original vanilla companions are completely gone. So there's this huge time skip that happens. As Mal said earlier, everything that you've kind of done before is brushed aside, and you're dumped into this entirely new storyline. What did you think about this?
It's really jarring.
It was.
And time skip, I mean, it can be used effectively very well. And sometimes you have no choice, like a show like where the kids are growing up, like Stranger Things
Yes,
or
you have
something.
to. You have
Right.
to.
It can make sense. But to this feels lazy. Like, oh, we don't know what to do. So now it's 5 years in the future and you've been doing, whatever for all these years. And we don't really know what to do. So we'll just have you be frozen and shipped off to this other planet.
So if it
I find that hard to care. Do you find it hard to care about that? I'm like, I'm at Sakul. Or, oh, help Sakul. Why? I don't care. I don't know who you are.
Excuse me, my main character is a trooper. She helps everyone in Sundry. It doesn't matter who they
Oh
are.
my God.
So you're dumped into this new story. They obviously wanted to have a new set of characters that were unique to Star Wars: The Old Republic. So they did like Valkorion, they did Valen, they did Arkin and Thexan and Senya. And I think these are pretty strong characters. I find them easy to remember. I don't think I could tell you a single character from Rise of the Hutt Cartel except for Sexy Sitharat. That's it. This whole expansion, I was able to actually name 5 main characters and Koth and Lana. Like, yes, they did it. I was so proud. They made them memorable, at least. But if their goal was to introduce these new characters, what was the point of the time skip, do you think? Was it so that you were no longer powerful and that was just the easiest way to deliver that?
It's weird to me because I feel like I went from being the hero in my story to being a side character in these other people's story. I feel like now I'm the supporting cast of the Valkorion and family show. Valkorion and Sons. Valkorion show. Valkorion and Senya. I don't know. The voice acting's great, though. Has some great, fresh, new voice acting.
Oh, could we just talk about Darren DePaul for the next 40 minutes? The voice of Valkorion.
He's so nice. He's so nice.
The story, I didn't connect with it, especially as a trooper. And this is a complaint that we see actually a lot of players have, even now down the line, that this story felt very catered to Force users who are standing up against an incredibly powerful Force user, probably one of the most powerful Force users in the galaxy, if not in the whole Star Wars timeline here. And my poor trooper, how she even stood half a chance, I don't know. I kind of had to imagine in my mind, she is literally the #1 top specialist. She's been through so much in her SWTOR life that if there was ever going to be a trooper who could stand up to it, it was going to be her. But I couldn't even play the story on my smuggler. I think this is actually the point that my husband stopped playing because he couldn't, he was already kind of waning, but he couldn't get into the KOTFE story and he has never finished it. Even after trying to create a Jedi later down the road, he never quite got back into the story.
I have finished it. But it's the first time where when I finished it on the Republic side, I did not rush out to go and see it on the Imp side. I just did not care. And I didn't feel like pouring all those hours into
long.
this story that I mean, I might have gone back to do it for achievements, but the chapters afterwards, we will talk about those as well. And then maybe in the next episode, I am just now doing those now. It was not gripping. Like I said, I felt like a supporting actor in a show that was not mine.
I think that's a really valid way of looking at it. You didn't feel like the main character. I think they kind of picked up on that. I feel like it got a little better in the next expansion, but in this one, they really missed the mark of you being the main character. Some people liked that, some people didn't, but it was a huge change. Another big change was in Shadow of Revan. We had the same story, Republic and Imperial side, but it was a Republic and Imperial intertwined story. It was about the Republic and the Empire coming together. And the one before that was there was a distinct Rise of the Hutt Cartel Republic and Imperial story. And then in Knights of the Fallen Empire, I don't know how much you know about the differences in a second replay as you haven't played it that much, but this time, the story is going to be the same the whole way through, except there are some key differences, light side and dark side, that can be very, very interesting on a second replay. Have you kind of seen those before?
Yeah, I mean, I have replayed it because I did the chapters, veteran, hard mode, etc.
Right. Me too. Those were cool. I like doing that. I like hard stuff.
Eh.
So you're like, it was too easy for me.
No, it's just the story is really tedious, and some of it is.
Oh, I spacebarred when I did my
Well,
veteran
yeah.
in master mode. I only did
you.
master mode, and I was like,
Thank you for demonstrating.
Pew, 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 pew,
She
pew.
demonstrated her space bar, in case I didn't know.
I had to. I had to. I was spending like 3 hours on some of the fights. I didn't have time to watch the story.
No, it's just a dreary story to me. And, I talk about my gunslinger, how I felt the story at the end was disjointed because I'm like, what is this? I'm just trying to drink and fuck my way around the galaxy, and now I'm
cannot
helping.
do that.
I'm part of the Republic. What is this shit? I feel like I wake up on Sakul. The first place my ass goes is the bar.
Right.
And no, instead, these
cantina.
people are like, oh, you have to do this. You have to. Why? I don't want to.
Did you like, out of curiosity, the Eternal Championship that was part of that as well?
I did like that. That was challenging
The
content.
dueling ring?
That was
Yeah,
really
that was
good.
fun.
I did like that. Didn't that come later, though?
I think it came later. So you know what? This is
That
probably
came
time
later.
to cut this expansion off.
That's it. That's all she wrote. Watch your flicker points. Saya's out there. You heard it here last.
No, there's no news. We don't know.
There's
We're
no
recording
news?
this early. There's
Oh,
probably news, but
no.
we don't know what it is. You guys are from the future. You
Hey.
guys tell us in the comments below about the news and what you thought about Knights of the Fallen Empire if you played it when it was released. And maybe if you played the story, what you think of it now. We'll be talking about Knights of the Eternal Throne next and continuing on with the later expansions.
We'll see you all next time.
See y'all later. You've been listening to the Starforge podcast with Scya and Mal. We know you have your choice of podcasts and you chose the right one. New episodes drop every Friday on Google and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Swtorista's YouTube channel, and just about every other podcast platform in existence. For show notes, pictures, and other information, visit starforgepodcast.com. Hit us up on Twitter at StarforgeCast. We love hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next week.
I am recording. Bleep bloop.
Beep, beep, beep. Okay, I'm recording.